Good afternoon, everyone. This is July 21st. It's the Board of Commissioners meeting for Merrimack Village District. And I'll call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. Let's all rise and pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. All right, so we'll do, first I'll read public participation will be offered in person and by webinar. You may join the webinar by going to the MVD website at mvdwater.org and pulling up today's agenda for today's meeting, which is July 21st. And there's a Zoom link on there that you can click, or you can call 646-876-9923 and enter the webinar ID 890-7026-3283. And again, all of that information is on today's agenda, which is on the mvd.org, mvdwater.org webpage. As a courtesy, we have Merrimack TV, who is recording this. It will be posted later on the website. So first thing we can do is just go through a roll call of members. And right now we are missing Wolf. He has indicated that he may join us later, and we'll make note when he gets here. We'll start with John. If you can tell us where you're calling in from.
25 Windsor Drive.
Thanks, John. And we have Paul McLaughlin, Ken Ayers, and myself. So we do have a quorum in the room. And the first thing we can cover is the Finance and Human Resources Review with Michelle Houghton, which is the analysis of revenues and expenditures. Have it, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. These are preliminary reports as we still have various expenses to come in to post, and we'll also be doing the year-end and any audit adjusting entries. But initially, our revenues are coming in at 4.276. Excuse me, 4.276, 276,000 for overall revenues. Although we are researching some meter hydrant and sprinkler charges that looked high with the year-end billing for all. Doing the comparison to last June to this June, it's just taking a little bit more time. So we'll have an update on that, but it's nothing that would bring us so that we would be below revenue budget. So we came in at currently with the preliminary numbers at 103.9% of budget for revenues versus 110.1% last year. We are seeing the water sales for mercantile and industrial coming back, as well as the water for domestic meter hydrant sprinkler charges have remained steady. And the other revenue items that due to the pandemic this year have been off, we anticipate will all start returning back to normal levels or new normal levels.
I have a question. Was something, did something change on communication tower rental? It looks like it was a little bit under the budget. I thought that would be something that would be more of a predictable
We had
revenue stream.
A new contract that was anticipated to be signed that has not to date. We have everything on our part to the vendor, but so far they haven't gotten back to finalize with us. So we did pull it out of the budget for this coming year. We would just allow it to be extra revenue.
Okay.
Put forward. Does anyone have any other questions on any of the revenue line items?
Administrative salaries, 50100. Looks like those numbers are a little bit lower than budget. Is that just because we were, we didn't really hit all of what we
Because,
expected on that?
For the secretary position, it's something that fluctuates.
Okay,
So for that, it is an estimated budget versus the commissioners, treasurer and clerk all being a set stipend.
okay.
And as far as other expense line items, overall, the expenses at this point are at 3.663 million, and that's giving us net ordinary income of 613,000. We also are going to be encumbering about $150,000 against this budget's net income funds, because we have signed agreements that weren't completely fulfilled by the end of the year, but we're in this year's budget. So at the next meeting, we'll be reviewing those. So that would bring our net ordinary income to 463,000. And for the expense line items, I used $2,500 as a threshold just to look at line items that were over budget. On page 2 of the P&L budget versus actual, account 60300, purchase of water, was a little over $3,100. And as we know, that's something that's unpredictable. But we have also since created the capital reserve to help us address that issue. Line item 60600, chemicals. That is something that we had mentioned that we knew was going to be off, in part just because of some of the estimates for the unknowns, new plants coming up. And also there were some year-end orders that were put in. The FY22 budget for chemicals was scrutinized with the new knowledge and adjusted accordingly. And account 70010, office equipment overall was under budget, but for the subcategory for software, we were 2,500 over budget, but we had decided to upgrade all our cybersecurity last fall. So that was a conscious decision with implementing the new IT policy.
Okay.
Page 3, line item 70200, mainline entrance and enhancements. That is for new meters. It's showing at $14,000 over budget, but that's something that does have a corresponding, the entrance fees that we get in the SDC. And also we're currently working on our inventory reporting. So we do a physical inventory at the end of the year. And we made those adjustments. And there were some items that weren't getting picked up from the work order system to the reporting system. So we did an estimate for those items and split it between meters and mainline entrance enhancements. It more may have fell to meters, and meters was under budget. So that's where that comes from. But as I said, it does have an offsetting revenue line. And lower on the page, 81950, professional fees legal, overall under budget, but the PFAS line item was 15,000 over, and we also adjusted the new year accordingly. We're going to, as far as trustee of trust funds monies, I mentioned before, trustee trust funds is not meeting for July, so we're actually going to get the funds in August, and it'll be over $800,000. And that will just be moving the monies from the restricted position of the capital reserves and bringing it over to unrestricted in our general fund. Does anyone have any questions on any of the other expense line items?
Yeah, I just got a couple on 912 and 913. Those just came in as zero, but they were budgeted like 60,000 and 20,000. Are we just deferring those or something, or?
The 90012 capital budget for the billing system, we actually just signed the contract in June. So that's part of the funds that are going to be encumbered. And we actually decided to defer on the purchase of the hydraulic camper. So that actually is
Okay.
not going to be purchased. Any other questions?
Anybody? No, go ahead then.
Just a couple of items to note. Last month, we had the IT policy and credit card policy on the agenda, and we had deferred. We didn't put it on this agenda, but we will have it on the August. Everyone has a copy of the IT policy from last month that I could also email it. But we just asked that if you can kind of give it a look over before the meeting. So if you do have suggestions that we can evaluate them prior, just because it is a bit of a long policy. And the credit card policy, as soon as we finalize on our side, we'll also share that, and we'll be reviewing that at the August meeting.
Okay.
In the treasurer position, I've been corresponding with legal about some questions regarding the switchover and how we approach recruiting for the role and hiring, et cetera. So I just got back some answers today. So we should be finalizing that and getting that posted. But at present, we still have Kathy Staff continuing on as our acting treasurer, which actually will be nice as we're going into audit. So where she's been our treasurer for the last few years, it'll be helpful to have her input during this time. Any questions?
No questions, anyone? Nope, none. All right. So was that it for you?
That's it.
Great. Thanks for your attendance. Okay, so what do we got next here?
Just running a little bit behind.
Running behind, yeah.
He said about 5:25, so minutes or do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, why don't we do that, I guess?
Yep.
So we're gonna shuffle the agenda here. We're gonna just go into review of the previous minutes. So that would be minutes from May 17, 2021, regular session. I think you just, ones that, Michelle, you added some edits or something on this. I think we have 2 pages to look at or something here.
Is it also including the June? Is that? Oh, it's from the May meeting. Okay.
Yeah. No, wait a minute.
So it's just the May minutes, not the,
It's supposed to be the June.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's okay. I'm like, I thought it said June 21st. Yeah.
Wait, you mean the printout? Mine says June 21st.
Yeah, no, but the agenda says May 17.
The minutes.
Oh, on the sheet. All right.
Yeah, so it's the June 21st
Right.
regular minutes and the non-public.
Right. All right, so that, the only thing I had, like the third, was it line 28? Looks like it's been corrected. So it says, she noted all the water sales are all below budget. The original copy said we're all of budget, so I put those 2 question marks in there because I didn't know what that meant.
Oh,
But it looks like you caught that, corrected that. I don't think I have any other suggestions or anything. All right, so if anybody has any offers, edits to offer, if not, then we can, someone make a motion to approve the June 21st meeting minutes. That would be as presented here, right? We're not really, no corrections to this.
Motion for approving the minutes for June 21st, 2021, as is.
All right, motion made by Ken. want to second that?
Well, Paul's got to abstain.
Yeah,
so-
Paul was not there.
Oh,
I can second it. I was just trying to browse through it, but I didn't have time to read it beforehand, but I'll second it.
All right, so second by John. Any other questions, comments on that? If not, then we'll do a roll call vote. John, how do you vote on those minutes?
Aye.
And Paul?
Abstain.
That's right, you abstain. Ken?
Approve.
Approve, and myself approve. So that passes 3-0-2 or 1. Wolf's not here, right? So that he just doesn't count in the,
Right.
yeah. All right, so 3-0-1 in favor with Paul abstaining. And then we can move on to the June 21st non-public minutes.
I think we gotta have to hold off. Right. I don't. That's just tonight, right? That one.
Yeah, I think we are, because if you guys are abstaining, then we only have, Ken and myself right now. All right, we can come back to those. So we're still waiting on our consultants, maybe move on to something else. Is Jamie planning on joining us or just giving us just gave us a summary?
Just gave the summary.
Okay,
So we can do that, right?
yeah, let's just move on to that then. This is going to be on the agenda is item number 2, which is Board of Commissioners to review change order number 1 as proposed by Emery and Garrett Groundwater GZA for additional exploration work at 70 Wilson Hill Road. Let's see.
I did have some email correspondence and they're actually good with the additional work.
The owner.
The owner is, I was actually pleasantly surprised because originally they were not for it. It was just at 69, so.
Right. So this is basically geophysical work and some test borings, I think, as well. Is that right?
I see, yes, I'm trying to find it, so.
surveys, it's right in the body of the change order.
I didn't get one of those either. Oh.
Says if the results of the geophysical surveys are favorable, EGGI will proceed with the drilling of exploratory test wells. So obviously, I'm sure Jamie is going to confirm what the geophysical work looks like. If it suggests that it's favorable to move forward, he's going to move forward with some test wells. And that's over on 70, what's the name? Wilson Hill Road, right?
I would imagine it'd be some sort of a report off of the.
Right. The geophysical surveys are 12,800. The exploratory test wells, he says 2 wells with preliminary yield and quality testing is an additional 14,000. So it looks like he's combining those numbers together for a change order of 26,800. And that's on top of the original contract, which was $5,900 to bring everything up to a grand total of 32,700. So with this change order number 1, it would be for the amount of an additional 26,800. And if the first part's not favorable, it would be a $12,800 number, and it would only jump the additional 14,000 if the test wells, we did move forward on the test wells. So he's got those 2 lumped in here in one change order. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. Everybody understands what this is for or whatnot.
Yeah.
The only question I had, there's been no discussion with the landowner about potential sale price or anything like that of the property if we were to develop a well out there at some point in the future. She's looking to sell it, not to, no easement or anything.
Not 70. She was looking to sell her.
69.
So I did send her off after our last meeting, the other report.
Yeah.
And so she's pretty much clear to do whatever on that. That's what they were really looking for the information on, was for 69.
69's on the north side of the street, I think, where it's more rocky. 70 is down closer to the valley where the Souhegan River kind of comes through in that area.
I think it's borders the Souhegan.
Okay. I guess I would just say maybe we can talk to Carrie or somebody about at what point, you know, I don't want to proceed spending money here without knowing that what we're possibly looking at for a price on the land. If the land comes, what was that?
Well, I mean, I have some thoughts on that when you, I thought you were going to stop for a second there.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the 1,100 gallons a minute. So I look at this report and I say to myself, can we replace one of the wells that we have that's treating for PFAS? And what would be the upfront, the operations costs that we avoid there? I think the price of the land relative to those things would be insignificant, to be honest with you. I think we should, I'm strongly in favor of going forward with this.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're saying that she's only interested in selling
69?
69, right? And this is the checks 70?
This is for 70, so she was open for the exploration, so I don't think it's not off the table, I guess, that it's purchase it. But I was gonna mention, typically we've done the exploration first to see if it's something we're interested in, then we would start negotiations.
Yeah, okay.
And typically that's what we've done. But that's not saying we have to do it that way, but that's what at this point, we're not even sure if we're interested, so.
I mean, I don't want to, I'm in favor of proceeding with this change order. I don't want to wait to get too far. I think maybe at the next step would be, once we find out if this is favorable, to maybe, I would say maybe even after the geophysical survey, to make sure that it's something that she's willing to continue and maybe hopefully arrive at a firm, you know, something, some kind of, so somehow to firm up a sale price, because if the more we go down this road, if things continue to look favorable, you know, the value of the property is going to change. So it's to our advantage, I think, to kind of pin this number down sooner than later.
And with this, we will have an idea of what the PFAS level is too, right?
Right. Well, not with the geophysical survey, but if that's promising and they do the test wells, then yes, then we would have an idea on that. So I'm just putting it out there. I personally don't want to get too far ahead on this. I don't want to slow down and not do this. I think it's a good idea to do this. And I don't know, maybe at some point we can talk to her, and, you know, would have to be something sort of a little bit more formal that maybe an official PNS or something like that at some point, you know, not too far from now, I think.
I mean, I definitely think we could, after the geophysical, we could definitely meet, maybe not, you know, just confirm that she is willing, or they are willing, I should say, to talk about, you know, to sell the property or easement or whatever.
Right.
We need to get on there.
Because so far, I mean, we would have been committing, what's the number, 32,700 if once this change order is completed. And I just want to make sure that we're spending this money, 32,700, with a realistic approach of having that land be available to us at some, whatever value it is. That's why I want to make sure it's not a ridiculous astronomical value or something. But I agree with John saying is, you know, plus or minus a few tens of thousands of dollars here and there on the value of the land is probably not significant to the cost of the development of the well there. So it's just something to keep in mind, I guess.
So then does the board want to just approve the geophysical surveys and then, or do we want to?
I always say we just, let's just go for it.
I would-
Approve them both.
I agree.
I agree.
Instead of coming
All right,
back.
yeah. Maybe between now and then, or maybe we hold on the results of the testing, the test wells or something before we release them. I know last time we released the information, she asked for it, and I think
We did, because it wasn't anything that we were going to move forward with. But I think off this, we would have the right to hold on to it.
right. She didn't ask this time about if she could get the results in hand or anything like that?
No.
Okay. All right, so,
I'm sorry,
Yep.
I would like to add that I did mention to her, if this probably, she was curious when this would happen. I probably the earliest would be fall, just because of everything else that's going on.
Right.
So
we're hoping we can be doing the pump test on well 9 sooner than that, but who knows? All right. All right, so if there's no other questions, anybody, any other questions? Otherwise, we can have a motion to approve this change order, which is project number 33.008 3056.09, dated July 13, 2021. And the change order is in the amount of $26,800. And again, those funds are coming from where?
I believe the original was out of budget, so I'm going to say we do have extra funds. We do plan for unanticipated engineering in the budget, so I'm going to say, but let's
Okay.
in the budget for this part. If anything further, we'll capital reserve.
Might have to take, yeah.
Hey, Don. Wolf here.
Hey, Wolf, how you doing?
Good. Do you want to maybe acknowledge my presence?
That's what I'll
For the
do.
minutes?
Yeah, we got
Before we
Wolf.
vote?
Yeah, it's, what time is it? 5:27.
I joined like 5:17, I think, something like that.
Oh, you did? All right. I didn't see you there. So 5:17, Wolf joined in, and you are calling from where?
From my car in York, Pennsylvania, Interstate 83. Interstate 83 going south. No, I'm in Pennsylvania for business, and unfortunately, I got held up at the office. So I will be at the hotel in a couple minutes, and then I will be joining there. Well, I will be continuing to stay on the call.
All right, great. So we were just talking about making a motion for this change order number 1
Yes.
for Emery and Garrett.
I heard that.
Anybody want to make that motion?
I would make that motion.
All right, motion by John. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Second by Paul. And we'll do a roll call. So we'll start with John. We'll do Wolf,
In favor.
Paul,
Vote aye.
Ken. Aye. And myself, aye as well. So that's 5-0-0. No abstentions, no oppositions. All right, so the other thing is maybe somebody can read or we just acknowledge the email from Jamie. Where did I put it? Anybody? I thought I printed that out.
I have it done.
Under number 2, with the change order.
You want me to read it?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know it was in our it's in our packet.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's right. I emailed that to you guys separately because that came yesterday
Yeah.
or today.
Is it in this packet? No.
I'm looking at it in my email, Don. What do you want?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of, bring it to the public's attention, basically.
Recording in progress.
So basically, Jamie just wanted to pass along some information that we already talked about the geophysical surveys at 70 Wilson Hill Road. The other thing he said was that we conducted a step test on well 9. And from rates between 500 and 1100. It was exceptionally successful. It only drew down 8 feet when it was pumping 1100 gallons per minute. So that's a specific capacity of 138 gallons per minute per foot. Jamie's words is this is likely to be one of the highest yielding wells in the state. So that's awesome. And then the other thing he mentioned was the schedule for doing the permanent pump test, which is, what is it, 5 days or 5 days we're going to be doing out there. It's still an issue because there's still some standing water. It's just been too wet. And there's a concern that it's going to be difficult to discern any potential drawdown impacts on those wetlands when they're full of water or something. So we're going to reassess when we're going to do that pump test. And we're looking at now mid-August, but it's just too wet out there. And he said he had spoke to Keith about this, and everybody agreed it was better to just put this off. So we're looking for an update in a couple of weeks on that. So that was the end of that from Jamie. So anybody have any questions or anything on that before we can move on to Keith?
Can I just ask a quick question, probably for Ron, with regard to all the wet we've had lately? Has the rain provided us with any opportunity to cut back on some of the wells production where our PFAS levels are very high?
It has, and we've actually adjusted accordingly.
Oh, great.
We've done, well, 7 and 8, we have bumped down a little bit. The only thing is if it turns quick, it takes us a while to get it back up. It puts sometimes we try to be conservative on that, lowering 7 and 8, but yes, we have well 2, well 3 have been cycling. Been off a little bit longer than 4 and 5 and 7 and 8. But yes, we have dropped the flow from 7 and 8.
Great, thank you, Ron.
Welcome.
So well 3 is probably a good one to try to cycle off when we can, because I think that's one of the higher wells. Yes. Well 2 is pretty clean. It's right around the 12 limit. 7 and 8 are a little tougher to throttle, I should say, because you have iron and manganese treatment on there. And I think you like to keep that at a nice steady pace, basically.
Yes, so well 3 is one of the wells that shuts off first. 2 will run longer than 3, but we've also been adjusting those levels just because of all the rain that we've been having. We don't want to overflow a tank. We don't want 7 and 8 to shut down. So we have been playing with that and resetting levels and stuff. So.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? If not, we can have Keith start off. You ready to go, Keith?
Yeah. Hi, guys.
How you doing?
Doing good.
So we're going to hear from Keith Pratt from Underwood Engineers on several of our projects here.
Yeah, and Peter couldn't make it tonight, so you got just me this time. But I see there's 4 things on the agenda, and the first one, or for my stuff, first one was ESR 60, which we presented to you. That ESR we presented to you, I think, at the last meeting. It had 2 parts: one for the pilot protocols at wells 4 and 5 to do some piloting of various medias with your own staff. So XTD and Underwood would be developing protocols. You authorized that part of that ESR last week. You had some questions on the second part, which had to do with the long-term monitoring. We went back and coordinated with Jamie. There was a little bit of overlap, Dawn, as you had pointed out, so we adjusted for that. And right now, at least for this year, Jamie explained at GZA, they're under contract for monitoring the raw water quality as he suspected. So they're going to continue to do that. So our effort was tailored more towards, which was the biggest part of what we were doing anyway, and that is to watch the performance through the beds, through the vessels, and to help provide ongoing technical assistance with the change out. So the ESR was adjusted downward a little bit. The scope was reduced slightly. And so it's in front of you now to continue. And we've given you some of the charts. We're sort of in good faith moving forward with some of the trend charts and that work because I know it's stuff you want to pay attention to, and we'll probably talk about that next. But that ESR is now for $8,000. It was reduced by $2,000 for that task, and that's, I think you should have a copy of that.
Yep. Any questions from anyone on that?
No.
All right, so I guess at this point, we could be looking for a motion to approve that engineering service request. And that is ESR number 60, dated 7/16/21 for Underwood Engineers. And that's PFAS water treatment plant, water quality monitoring and technical assistance. And those funds would come from,
Budget as well.
that also comes from the budget.
The engineering portion.
Engineering budget, okay. Anyone have questions, or if not, anybody want to move that motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, moved by Paul, second by Ken. We'll start with roll call. Paul, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Wolf?
In favor.
On?
Aye.
Myself in favor, so that's 5-0-0 to proceed with that. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. I'd like to skip over well 7 and 8 for a second, just because the item C and D, wells 4 and 5, really relate to that ESR. So if that's okay, and then we'll come back to 7 and 8. But the what we also gave you last week, late last week, was the trend charts that we continue to track for the performance of the PFAS removals through the vessels at 4-5. And we are starting to see, some breakthrough of one of the short chains in the lead vessel. We're not seeing breakthrough from the second vessel, but we are still seeing significant PFAS reduction in the lead vessel. So the charts that you've seen these before, and I don't know if you want me to walk through them, share my screen. I don't know what's easier for you. If you'd like to, I can share the screen. Maybe that benefits anybody who's.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
All right. Let's give a second to call it up.
Go through them real quick and
yeah, I'll go through them quick because I think it's just important that we understand the charts and you can continue to study them. But do I have permission to?
Yeah, it should be your panelist.
I'm just calling it up. So just gives there it comes. Okay, share. It says host disabled sharing.
Okay, you should be all set. I just made you co-host.
Okay, now it's good. All right. So these are the charts that are in front of you. And we have two types of trend charts that we are tracking. This first chart shows the lead vessel total PFAS removed at each port. So this is time constraint, time on the bottom starting in October when the treatment plant went online. So you can see at each vessel, at each port of the lead vessel, how much is being removed. So at the 25% port, which is the purple, as of July, 40% of the PFAS is being removed. And that's all the PFAS that we're recording as present. So it's all the PFAS that we're measuring that's present. And then you can see at the 50%, 75%, and 100% ports, we are still getting above 90% removal at each of those ports, at the 50, 75, and 100. The other thing this one shows is the regulated compounds. We're also tracking the performance of the regulated compounds. So as of 9 months of operation, or 8 or 9 months of operation, we're still getting 100% removal of the regulated PFAS in the lead vessel at all ports.
okay.
Sorry, not at all ports, but at the 100%.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Keith, how do you calculate that percentage? I don't understand that, because so we're taking we're comparing the raw water with the water sample taken at that port.
Yeah,
And then
it is. In this chart, it's a summation, Wolf, of the PFAS that's present in the raw water that we're measuring to a summation of the PFAS present at each port to calculate percent removal.
Okay, sorry, just want to make sure I understand that.
And these are for 6 PFAS or 4?
I think it's for more. I think it's for 8. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because there's 8 PFAS present in the raw water that we're tracking. I mean, we're measuring more. I don't know how many you're measuring, 24, whatever it is. But
well, your footnote 3 says 6 PFAS compound present in raw water, 3 regulated, 3 non-regulated. So it must be 6 then?
Maybe it is 6.
Okay.
Although this chart tracks 7, 8. Yeah, I'll have to check on that, Dawn.
Okay.
I do know they are summing what's present in that chart. The second series or the rest of the charts are at each port. So this chart on page 2 is what's happening at the 25% port. So that's 25% into the lead vessel. The dashed line is that percentage removal. So we're still getting 40% removal of all PFAS, but it's showing the breakthrough curves for each of the individual PFAS in this port. Okay, so we are seeing breakthrough at the 25% port. When you go to the 50% port, there's only one compound in that lead vessel that's breaking through, PFBA. Started breaking through back in February, but we're still getting over 90% removal of all PFAS. When you go to the 75% port, we're starting to see that. We started to see that same PFBA short chain breakthrough in April, May, but we're still getting over 90% removal of all PFAS. And then the last chart is the 100% or the discharge of the first vessel. We are seeing a breakthrough. We started seeing breakthrough at the last round in June, end of May, and we're still seeing that breakthrough, but we're still getting over 95% removal of all PFAS. And no regulated compounds are showing up at I think at 75 or the 100% location of the lead vessel.
So it looks like we're just getting PFBA through the lead vessel, right? And the rest of it has not showed up yet.
Right.
And then the first graph, you had a footnote that this represents that we're at 15,000 bed volumes. And as of April 30th or something, where's that?
As of April 2021.
Yeah, and I think you're actually at higher than that. They may not have updated that one, but I think we're running at more bed volumes now. See if I got it.
What was the warranty? Like 60,000, I think?
Yeah.
60,000?
Regulated. 60,000 bed volumes was the warranty for regulated compounds. And they are at, I know it's here somewhere.
So
I'll have to find it. I can't find it right now, but I know we're more than that.
More than 15, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we will continue to update these. I'll double check on the 6 versus 8. They may, that may be a typo on the footnote, but I do know they're summarizing all of them that are present.
And then some of the compounds on the second graph that the lines kind of go horizontal to some extent. Does that mean that they're approaching the raw water concentration or something at that port? That because it like the removal isn't going.
Yeah, I'd have to check. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'd have to check on the raw water concentrations because that's the actual concentration. It's not a percent.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I'd have to double check on that, but I will ask.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on these graphs? Right.
I'm good.
Have any more you wanted to talk about that, Keith, or you want to move on to the next?
I'll move on. I'm just taking a note just to make sure I
Okay, good.
get back to you on that. The other thing I wanted to show you that relates to this, and again, I'm just going to give this to you for an FYI. And can you see, did my screen change for you?
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. You have this in your packet, and Lynette did this. She did a nice job. There's a lot here to unpack. I'm not necessarily going to walk through it all with you unless you want me to. But what this is, there's two columns here. What we talked about at our last meeting and what we're trying to present here for future discussion or for further discussion is you really have two choices in operations. We've been talking about when to change out the carbon. We sort of landed on we're going to try to run these things as long as we can to learn, I think, in this first option, as long as we continue to be comfortable with the trend charts and the removals that we see. But the two options that we've been chatting about is we operate and change out the carbon on the regulated compounds. That's kind of the minimum you have to perform to. Or I know, as some interpret the Warren article, we have to operate the change out of the carbon to work towards more of a non-detect of all PFAS. So these two columns kind of represent that extreme. Let's meet just the MCL, or let's meet what we believe the intent of the Warren article was, okay? Where we fall in between, I guess we can decide. If we fall on the right column, we fall in the right column. If we operate in the left column, those are choices we'll ultimately be making. But what this tries to do is predict what we think the cost impacts are for each of those choices. And without going through it in detail and walking through, what we're finding is it's really going to, based on what we know today, and more time will tell on how things operate and when breakthrough occurs and how it impacts the second vessel. But we are seeing that on the carbon changeout frequency, it would be about a factor of 3. So anytime we operate on the right side, meaning to non-detect of all PFAS, we're going to triple our carbon costs. If we operate to just what we believe is required for the MCLs, your carbon costs would be 1/3. We are seeing that, when we originally did the cost estimates and so forth, we were basing it on MCL. That goes back to 2018 when we set rates and et cetera. So when we go look at new rates and adjustments, if we operate on the second column, it's three times the cost. It doesn't triple the cost of the treatment plant. It triples the cost of the carbon related change out frequencies and so forth. So that's what this is. I didn't go through it all. There's a lot here, but that's really the executive summary of what we're seeing and based on what we know today.
Yeah, and I think in a previous meeting, we had talked about, at least for now, because, the rest of our wells are still untreated. So we have PFAS going into the system, that it made sense to run this out to get better data. And maybe at some point in the future, once all wells are treated, then we can look at doing something, making a decision or whatever, if we want to do completely non-detect of all PFAS or just the regulated PFAS or something in the middle. But so I guess we still haven't made a commitment. And I know you might be asking us to consider what we want to do about this, and I'm not sure when we need to make that choice.
Well, I was chatting with Peter about it, and I didn't really get a chance to check with Ron, but we were under the impression, to what you just said, this is the time we're going to be testing and using Wells 4 as kind of the test case, Wells 4 and 5, to understand how the carbon responds, so that we do sort of run it to the extent that we can, even if we start seeing small breakthrough, because we want to learn how the carbon is going to react so we can make better choices when all the treatment plants are up and running. So we felt like, I think that's where we landed. Of course, we can revisit that, but that's the impression we got.
That's my recollection as well. Any questions on any of this from anyone?
No, that's what I remember as well.
Okay. All right.
I will stop sharing. If there's no other questions on that, I just wanted to give you an update on 7 and 8, if you're ready to carry on.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I know some of you have been involved with discussions on the vessel issue with 7 and 8, where vessel number 1 hit the bridge and got the damage. There's been several phone calls with the contractor and the manufacturer, including right down to the vessel manufacturer. We're close to what I think is a resolution. I think I'm hoping we're days away. I'll give you kind of a snapshot of what I think it's going to be. And then I think once we get some final feedback from the contractor and Evoqua, I want to get together with Ron, and I know Don and Wolf have been helping. So we'll probably have one other final discussion just to make sure. But essentially where we're landing is Wes has provided us a scenario that would be this is going to be a no cost issue. There's delays here, but it's going to be a no cost issue to the district, as long as the district.
West being the general contractor.
Sorry, yes, Wes Wicks and the general contractor who you have the contract with. We're dealing with him directly, although we all have conversations with the manufacturer who works for him. But Wes has presented a scenario where it's a no cost increase. In fact, I said, Wes, it might even need to be a decrease because, there may be a little bit of delay that's going to impact Joel's time or something that's out there that add engineering and so forth. So there is a small consideration, or a consideration. It's not big, but there is a small consideration to have a cost reduction in that change order. But it does come with a significant delay of time. And what Wes is saying is, this was an unfortunate thing. Nobody did this on purpose. It certainly was an accident. But he can get us a no cost slight decrease as long as we're comfortable with the time needed to get this thing repaired properly, get it here and get it up and running, which could be, we're not seeing the treatment plant online till spring. So if that's, if we're comfortable with that, which I think, Underwood is, then we have a pretty good path forward. The one deal we're still working out is whether or not we're going to get an R stamp. The impression is we aren't going to get what they call the R stamp, and they've given some more explanation on why. And it does, for those of you who weren't on some of the phone calls, one of the questions came up about the lining. These tanks are lined with coating systems on the inside after they do certain testing. They can do hydrostatic testing on the lining, but what happens is there are certain tests that they have to do to get the ASME stamp, after before it leaves the facility, and they can't do that after they do a hydrostatic test because they could potentially damage the coating because of the moisture in the tank. They can't get all the moisture out. So what they're proposing is, that was their reason they can't get an R stamp. And so what they're proposing is to do all the requirements for the testing except the hydrostatic. I got a better understanding of what their repair plan includes. And when you read it, they are offering, or not offering, they're actually requesting, maybe it's requiring, to have a representative from Merrimack go to the facility to see the tank before they deliver it, so that before it leaves their facility, we're happy with it. That's a protection for you, but it's also, in fairness, a protection for them, so that it doesn't get here and then it gets rejected. They're willing to pay those costs to get somebody out there to look at it. And They are going to have a third party who looks at the tank in the facility in Iowa. And then when the tank actually gets the blessing to leave Iowa and it makes its way to Merrimack, that same third party is going to be here to look at it to make sure the condition of the tank when it left Iowa is consistent when it arrives. And that's also to help with the warranty, their warranty, because they want to make sure it didn't get, they also want to make sure there was no further damage or scrapes or scratches that occurred on transit. They are offering they originally offered a 3-year bond. West pushed back, and I think we're getting that up to a 5-year bond, maintenance bond. So all those pieces feel good, I think are right. But we aren't, at this point, they're not offering the R stamp. I pushed back in a phone call with them on Monday and said, well, if we can't get an R stamp, it sounds like everything is in order. The owner and the customer may want the R stamp. Is there something equal, or is there something equivalent, or is there something close that we can get? So they're looking at that. I'm not sure. Wes is not sure that we're going to get anything more from them. So we may be, haven't heard back, but we may be in the position that this is what they have on the table, and we're going to have to decide whether we're comfortable with it. So that's where we're at. They did say they would be closing the loop with us on Friday. So I expect at that point we'll be having another conversation to make a decision. But that's the report.
Okay.
Do we know the dollar amount of the bond?
I think Wes told me they're at $1 million, so I think we're comfortable with that.
With the 5 years?
I believe, I'm pretty sure on that.
So what would be the plan to button up the building at 7 and 8? Are we still proceeding with one vessel, get one vessel online? Have we talked about that, or still up in the air?
I mean, I'm not sure. Wes sees it as up in the air. He sees this as not too many scenarios other than getting this vessel here before winter. The idea of doing something temporarily is not, that's not in the plan, this plan.
Okay.
This plan includes getting the vessel here in time. The plan that Wes gave me is, if we comfortable with this proposal and this repair approach, it should be here in time for Wes to complete closing the building before winter. And so that's the idea. Okay. So we're under there's a critical path associated with this plan. That is, we really need to make decisions by this week or next week, I think, to really be assured that it's going to work.
And did Evoqua offer any testing of the tank shell, the tank wall, where it was slightly deformed? I know they mentioned that the deformation they didn't think was enough to disqualify the tank from being non-usable, but there is a little bit of a deflection there. And I know we were asking about where that metal is a little bit bent and deflected. Is there some kind of a penetrating radar test they can do to just make sure there's no like cracks in there or something? Or did they offer any of that? It sounds like they didn't, huh?
They didn't. No, they didn't. And one of the things they say that that's within their standard and they are comfortable with it. One of the things we spoke again with the manufacturer, and they're building tanks. And, I did get a hold of a mechanical engineer, a friend of mine, where I just said, hey, what do you know about ASME tanks? He goes, well, I really don't know a lot about ASME tanks except for small vessels, but he understands the ASME code. And I told him the scenario. He goes, well, where's the vessel now? And I said, well, it's at the manufacturer. They brought it back. He goes, well, that's the best case scenario. If it's at the manufacturer, that's your best case scenario. To not have it there would have made him a little bit more nervous. So that helped me. I did get it personally. I did get in touch with another tank manufacturer. I think we spoke last time about that. Yep. I called another manufacturer out of Pennsylvania just randomly. And I said, hey, you build vessels? He goes, I do. I build ASME vessels. I don't go to 15, I go to 12, but it's the same code, 12-foot diameter, that is. And I explained to him what happened. I actually shared the repair plan. And he said, yeah, it's he acknowledged you can go either way. If you don't necessarily need an R stamp. You could get an R stamp. He didn't know about the coding issue at the time. I didn't even tell him there was a coding issue. But he said, your best case scenario is that it is at the tank manufacturer too. So that was also a little bit helpful. But that was just a conversation with somebody out of Pennsylvania who knew more about the tanks than I do, who had no skin in the game.
So I guess if it's true that the deformation is not enough to invalidate the certification or whatever, and that's probably the reason they're not going to do the testing of the wall. I guess I can understand that. Have you found an independent party to kind of confirm everything that they told us, or to do the inspection out there? Do you have someone lined up that knows?
We don't. We have a couple leads. There's a group called Teen Inc. or something that does it. And we have through Devin in our office, who's used to work in New York, DEP had some experience with some vessels. So he's chasing that. We don't have anything definitive there. Evoqua or Universal is using a third party. I don't know who that is yet, but it's their third party working for them. But it is a third party. That third party will be the same one that's going to look at the vessels at the facility, and the same one, I'm told, that's going to be in Merrimack when it shows up to look at it again. So we will have that third party.
Okay. Do you think that's a neutral enough party that would look out for MVD and not just interests?
I think what this is boiling down to is we could probably do some things to chase a third party or do some independent looks. It does probably add the risk of further delays. When I said, hey, Ron, how do you feel about going to Iowa and taking a look at a tank at their expense? Ron's willing to do it, I think, if that's the right path, but he's like, I don't know exactly what I'd be looking at. I can look inside the tank and see that the coating looks good, but I don't know. Maybe we could, when Ron goes, maybe at our expense, because I could try to get it, then we could send a third party or find that third party that goes with Ron. That was one thing we talked about, but that has not been put on the table with those guys. So what I'm getting at is, I think we're under a little bit of a time constraint too, and I don't want to try to push something that we're not comfortable with, but that is somewhat of the reality of it. I think we just got to decide whether we are comfortable with Universal delivering a tank with their name on it that meets the expectations of us as the customer.
Yeah.
They say that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
One last point, Don, sorry. I meant to say it earlier, but I talked about the deformation as you did. The other big sticky point was the tabs and the weld that people believe is close to the tabs. I did also push back on that one and say, those, I just need those specifically addressed. Those are the sticky points. If we're not getting the R stamp, there's just needs to be some comfort that we know that you're doing this, consistent with what you say, because it just seems to be strange to think you can do this without impacting the pressure boundary, but they say they can. I asked him again directly. He said, we're cutting it up above the tab, above the weld, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Not welding on the pressure boundary. Did you see the news today? A vessel hit the bridge in Malden, Mass, a pressure vessel.
Did it really?
Yeah. I didn't go look it up, but my staff said, Google it, Route 93, Interstate 93. It moved the bridge 6 inches. Don't know what it did to the vessel, but this is not unique to Merrimack, apparently.
Wow.
I heard about the bridge. I didn't know it was a vessel, though.
Yeah. Peter told me it was a pressure vessel without the proper permits or chase cars.
Oh, wow. That's not good.
Yeah. So I'm not looking for a decision today, Don. I just wanted to mostly report to you where we're at. I do think we're close. I'm hopeful that what we're coming up with by the end of the week, we can all be comfortable with, but I will be looking to convene something probably with the group that we met with earlier, just to make a final decision, hopefully by the end of the week, first of the week at the latest.
Are you still waiting information on them, or were they waiting on us?
They're not waiting on us. I'm waiting on one more piece.
Okay.
I will be, Wes, I talked to Wes quickly on my way over here. I asked if he was going to be listening. He's not. He had to go pick up his wife at the airport, but he just said his voice to me was, this is our best scenario. We should work to close the deal here.
Okay.
Do we know? Because it would take a real long time to get a new tank.
It added at least, was it 12 weeks, Ron? It was quite a bit.
Yeah, it was up to
12 weeks, yeah.
It went from 12 to 22 or 10 to 22 or something.
Possibly 24.
Yeah.
Would they be comfortable with us sending our own third party to inspect it? Or has that not even been brought up?
I think they would. I mean, I don't think they'd oppose it if it was at our cost. I don't think it came up that it would be at theirs. They have offered to send what they said is the end user, which I didn't ask if that meant, could it be a third party or does it have to be a Merrimack or, a Merrimack rep? My guess is they would be okay with it if they would pay for somebody to go out. They told me that. If we decide who it is, I think they would also accept that if we can find somebody that we would want to send, if it's not Ron or not Joel. I think to answer your question, they probably would. It's just a matter of who it is.
Do we know the deflection at the indent?
It's
Do we know
less
how much it got deflected?
It's less than an inch. They gave us a video on it, Wolf, and but they didn't put a tape on it. They claim it's well within the tolerances of this code. Peter thought it was less than a half an inch.
And do we know what material that steel is? What kind of steel is it? Is it a pretty mild steel? Is it a high carbon steel? Do we have an understanding of the material? Because again, depending on the steel, strain hardening can be an issue or not so much an issue, right? I mean, an inch deflection isn't that much in the end, so I would agree with that. But if it's really brittle steel, then an inch, if this was cast iron, an inch would be tremendously concerning. So that I think would be information I would like to see.
Don't know the answer. I can look on what particular steel it is. I suspect if they're telling me it meets code, that's considered, but I don't know. See what I can find out.
So are you not looking for an independent third party, or are you at this point?
No, we are looking, and we have the guy I talked to in Pennsylvania. I said, if we need you as a third party, he's just a peer to them. He's just another tank manufacturer. He said, yeah, maybe I can help. I mean, he was willing to talk to me for no cost and just sort of educate me and give me his opinion.
Yeah.
But I didn't go back and push him on it being a third party flying out or anything like that. And then Devin is chasing this group, Team Inc., and we did ask them what that would look like if we did ask them to do that. They haven't gotten back to us yet.
Okay.
So yes, we're still looking.
Yeah. One final question I had is somewhere in the contract documents, or maybe the contractor himself, is he insured, or is there like an insurance in the contract that covers his expenses that are, involved in something like this? Or
Wes?
Yeah.
He's insured. He's got builder's risk and other things, but general liability, and but it was never in his possession. I think Wolf asked the question. I mean, it was FOB. Well, Wes's contract is FOB Merrimack, so it was in Evoqua's possession the whole time when this happened. So there is probably an insurance claims going on between Evoqua and Universal, but not with Wes, as I understand it.
That's what I was wondering.
Can I ask you something, Keith? What is the risk with this? Is it risk that it starts to drip? Is the risk that it blows out? I'm concerned if there's a safety issue here.
I don't think
that's a good question, and we did talk about that. The contractor Wes was kind of adamant about it. He said, come on, guys, there's not a lot of risk here. I think, to answer your question, of all the vessels you have out here, the risk is probably, there's not a risk of
Yeah, but I'm sorry, the contractor is a builder. The contractor is not a tank manufacturer. Let's be very clear on this.
Right, but
so with all due respect, that opinion doesn't matter. No offense. Whether or not he thinks it's going to burst or leak, he's not a tank subject matter expert.
Right, I understand. But I would say, from my perspective, of all the tanks you have out here, this is probably the lower risk tank for this to happen to, meaning the operating pressures on this vessel are lower than any of the other vessels in the system. It's operating at about 10 PSI. All the other vessels are high pressure because we don't have a clear well. So this particular vessel is located at 7-8, where we have a clear well. So the wells go through the vessel and they immediately dump into a clear well. So we're not these vessels are not pressurized to your distribution system. Right. It's only pressurized local to the clear well. So if there was any vessel this should happen to, this would have been the one. But
I got retested, right?
There is going to be a hydrostatic test here when it shows up. So that is part of the plan.
Well, even Keith, I'm assuming these tanks have rupture discs on them, correct?
Have what?
Rupture discs?
Yes.
What are the rupture discs rated at?
I don't know.
I don't know off the top of my head, but
I remember hearing that.
It probably would be close to what if its system pressure is 10 PSI, I wouldn't imagine much more than that.
Okay.
But there must be a factor of safety on the tank.
I would assume so, yeah. We operate our vessels at 3 PSI. The rupture discs are rated for 45. So,
wow.
I mean, they're not anywhere close to the operating pressure.
So that's supposed to rupture before the vessel?
Correct.
Yeah.
I'll look for that.
And Keith, you said something very important just now, that we will do a hydrostatic test once the vessel is in place. We should probably have some kind of language in the agreement that says if the vessel fails, we're back to the drawing board.
I agree.
Well, we'll make sure. Yeah, I agree. Anything that's agreed to, if it doesn't meet the conditions, then yes, we're back to the drawing board.
And that is probably true. That is probably true no matter what, right? I mean, I guess my point is, whoever we send, like Ron or a third-party assessor or some subject matter expert, if we send somebody out, that's not a sign-off on the liability of meeting the contractual obligations.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And because they still haven't done the hydrostatic pressure test, which would be done after it shows up, I think they were very candid about it. They just said, we just don't want to deliver the vessel. And then when it shows up, you say, yeah, no, and send it back. So I got it.
And that makes sense. I take no offense with that, but I wanted to be clear that our inspection and our approval and sign off is not a release of any
liability,
functional performance of the system of the vessel, right? I mean, it still needs to meet the contractual obligations, period.
Yeah, and I'll make a point to be clear with that, Wolf, and because really what's happening when the vessel shows up in Merrimack, it's still not yours, it's the contractor's. And because that's the contractor's site until you accept it at substantial completion. But I will make that point that really all we're doing, if it's Ron that goes out there, that they're just saying, yeah, it's as far as we're concerned, we won't reject it if it shows up. We still got hydrostatic testing to do. We still got performance testing to do. We still got warranty stuff, but go ahead and ship it.
It sounds like almost like they want us to, or somebody to look at it, say, yeah, okay. So something happening when it leaves them, something happens shipping wise, we don't,
I was gonna say the same thing. It's more of a visual. It's just to say that they fix the pipe brackets, the legs has been straightened out, right? The paint's uniform, and because we're not gonna be, it's gonna be completed. The repair should be completed, so it's really not. We're not even witnessing any of the tests. So,
right,
that makes sense.
They made it clear that visit would be when it's ready to be shipped.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. There's nothing wrong with that. It just can't be seen as a sign of any obligations that they contractually agreed upon.
And John, I don't know if we totally answered your question, but about what kind of problem. I'm more concerned not with a catastrophic problem, but more of like if there's some kind of welding that they do that compromises the coating of the tank, and all of a sudden the coating fails earlier than it otherwise would. It's going to cost us to have to repair it if it's within that 5-year window. I mean, if it's beyond that 5-year bond window or something. I'm not sure what the bond covers, to be honest, but maybe that's another question that follows.
I mean, it strikes me, and I'm a little new to the conversation, but it strikes me that we are now purchasing a reconditioned tank. And if I'm buying a reconditioned anything, I'm starting at 20% off the price and going down from there. And I'm also deciding if I really want to buy a reconditioned thing. I've bought reconditioned instruments in the past and regretted it.
Yeah.
And had all kinds of problems with it. And finally, the company had to replace it with a new one a year later. But we struggled with it for a year.
Yep.
And if that's going to be the case here, and we feel like it's going to be the case, I'd wait to 12 weeks. If it's not, we'll take it.
Well, we're not sure that that's an option that's not going to cost us. From my understanding is if we want a new tank, they might say, well, we're going to repair this tank. It would cost us this amount of money and we were going to give you that as a new tank, even though it's not new, but then they would charge us extra money or something.
Yeah, we have to be a little bit careful how much of this is being discussed in public. No offense, but this meeting is public. They have any right to watch this, and some of these discussions may not want to be had. And
well, that's up to you. I mean, that's a discussion I would have freely with my vendor. Depending on what else is out there for supply. Do we know anybody else that makes these things? I guess is the first question. If they're unable to deliver and are unwilling to deliver a new tank, which is what we asked for, I think the alternative would be to go to another company and get a tank. But I don't know what the availability is, and I don't know how locked into the contract we are. But from my perspective, and it's kind of a hard line, and it's really only a hard line if we think we need a new tank rather than a reconditioned one.
Right.
So I mean, minimally, from my perspective, minimally, if we're accepting the reconditioned tank, there should be a significant discount that goes along with that.
They're not offering that at this point. They are making the statement that this tank meets the contract, meets the new tank standards, and they are making it clear that in their view, not ours, but in their view, it is the same tank. Yep, it's got a dent in it.
Yeah,
that's their position. I'm just saying that's their position.
Well, then I guess we got to decide what to do next,
Right.
Are there alternatives, Keith?
Well, you're under contract with Wes, who has a contract with these guys who built the vessel. So the alternative would be a very challenging one because, it's a turnkey project that we proved a shop drawing for. We are, they are making certain accommodations. I'm not sure how that would work, John. And to Don's point, if we did go towards a new tank, we weren't comfortable with this tank, you can do that. They offered a new tank option. What they didn't show yet, what that cost would be. Wes has offered a solution with this tank that is a no cost, slight decrease, not what you're talking about, but a no cost essentially, but time. But Wes told, in the last conversation I was with Wes, he told those guys the new tank's off the table because he can't visualize what those costs would be. He I don't know why he said that, but he's pretty strongly feeling that that's just a challenging choice. But that's what he said.
Yeah, I can't say I would agree with that, to be honest with you. If the reconditioned tank comes in and it meets the spec and that sort of thing, then it's an option to consider for sure. But for my money, I don't go buy a new car with a dent in it for the same price.
Yeah.
Dale don't like the dog.
All right, so You don't need anything from us at this moment?
No, just hopefully you're looking from us for a resolution we can all live with soon, but we'll see what the next couple of days brings.
Yeah, any other,
What should we, where it sounds like, you know, we're not really comfortable with a refurbished tank. Should we ask them for the ballpark figure of what it would cost to replace the tank? So then we can make an informed decision.
I think we already did.
We were supposed to receive that on Monday last week. There was a commitment made that I think was not met.
Right.
Well, and he kind of implied there'd be an additional cost to us, but he never really came out and said.
No.
Yeah.
That it would cost us more.
And it could be up to 24 weeks longer.
Right. It said that, you know, that option was there if they couldn't check all the boxes that we were requiring. In their mind, they're checking all the boxes.
Right.
So it was the assumption on our part that it's going to cost us more because of they feel that they're checking the boxes.
We're talking about wanting to close up the building before winter, correct? So that's why we don't want to extend this. Who in this room actually believes we're going to make that deadline? Looking at the last project we did. I mean, let's be realistic.
Well, we had actually said that it would possibly in the interest of the district to even accept additional cost for a removable roof. Because one day we might have to replace those vessels anyway. And in order to not have to rush this decision, it might be a good idea to pay the contractor, the general contractor, an additional expense to make the roof removable, right? So, and I would actually be okay with that. I would be okay with that additional expense because it allows us to take a stronger position on this situation here. What we don't have today is a clear path for an alternative. Is there another vendor out there? Is Evoqua willing to work with another vendor? If the original manufacturer is not willing to work with us, is Evoqua basically throwing their hands in the air and saying we don't want to participate in any other alternative solution, and we have to find a different vendor, and then we have two different tank suppliers and you know, in between merchants in between, right? Like we have right now with Evoqua and the original manufacturer. So we really don't have all the options on the table, and that's the part where I'm getting back to having a really bad feeling about them. They're not being transparent. We were clear with each other. We were respectful with each other. We had agreed, or they had agreed, to give us both alternatives on Monday last week. We have not received that, which means we're now being driven by their information that they play us, right? That they forward to us, and that's not satisfactory to me.
So we could ask them to provide that number so we can compare for ourselves.
I agree.
What would be, I don't know how you ask it, what would be the proposal for a new tank, and maybe ask how much the contractor would have to pay extra for the new tank.
And I just throw something out there. So where we have one tank delivered, so say for instance, if we go try to find another vendor, will they work with us where we have a different tank in there?
That's where it gets sticky, because we have a contract with a contractor, and it's not like, you know, we can just go to a different tank. He really has to go to the different tank company. And
well, we could release him off the scope of supplying two tanks. We could release him off that scope and say you only supply one tank. Your contract amount is going to be reduced. Tell us what the change order is. You know, we might pay that difference, and we release him off the obligation of that scope to send us to deliver a second tank. Then of course we have to find either him or another contractor that re-quotes us installing that second tank, and then we go shopping for the tank from another manufacturer, from another supplier.
And then we'd have to deal with potential costs on making the building, put the roof on the building, and then taking the roof off and bringing the second tank in, because you're not getting a new tank before the winter. Lucky
Correct.
if we
You
get
would
the
have to have a
repair tank.
removable. It would have to be a removable roof.
I want to get in, will, like, the tank that we have there now, with another tank, will the system work together?
No, so I was gonna speak to that. You got pipe racks and you've got other equipment that are attaching to these tanks, and you've got controls and so forth, and you've got under drain systems. I don't think that's a scenario we want to go down. I think long term that's going to be a nightmare for you. You know, this project was designed, this facility was designed around the Evoqua system. And I think your two options are the vessel that they've got, recoded and retested and brought back, or a new one, but you're still getting a Evoqua system. So I think the idea, I would discourage you from looking at that. I just think there's too many unknowns, too many risks that we're taking on. Even the idea of a new vessel, I can tell you that Wes has told me the idea of that is, we could go to a temporary roof, we could do that, but there's a lot of costs involved with that. And I don't know that Evoqua was going to pay for that, because they're claiming that they're providing you a tank that meets ASME code, which is what we asked for. And everything that we found out is they are. We haven't found out anybody that says they aren't. What we're questioning is whether we trust them, I guess. But that's kind of where we're at. So I think if we start, I want to resolve this, but I also don't want any shortcuts. Okay. I'm not trying to promote that. I'm just trying to put a little bit of, reality, I guess, in where we're at. I think we're committed to the West's contract with the Evoqua, because that's what we specified around. Unless we're really prepared to see where this goes, because I couldn't explain exactly the path it would go to a different vendor. So I think it really boils down to the tank we have, or a new tank with Evoqua. And, I do feel like Evoqua's 99% there, saying it meets the code. It's got a dent in it.
Right.
Meets the code.
So to Paul's question about the timing on this, let's say they run into production problems, they can't get the repair tank to us until the winter starts hitting in, and
or they run into another bridge.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that too. If it's another bridge, then we automatically get a new one. But I mean, realistically, if they don't meet the schedule, then it's an issue for the contractor. Does that come back to MVD at some point, or how does that? Well,
the offer on the table, just to be clear, is it's going to be a specific time. We're not giving them an open time checkbook. They've given us a schedule. They said they would have the vessel in, 10 weeks, and so plus delivery. They have found a path to get it here without hitting a bridge. They got the second vessel here, so now they know how to get it here. So we know that's good. So we're going to sign a change order for this if we agree to it, and it's going to have these specific times that we've agreed to, and so that if they don't meet it this time, or if they, then we still have the contract with liquidated damages.
All right, that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
We're not giving them an open time. What Wes has said is I need till spring, and we'll pick that time, whatever it is, May 5th, May 17th. I don't know, but it's going to be a contract time.
Okay.
Keith, I know I asked you this before, but are we too far along at Well 2 project to get out of?
If we might be, Ron, but if there is a facility to rethink Evoqua, that's the one. It's not this one.
Right. Yeah, and at Well 2, we got 12-foot tanks, right?
Yes.
So there's more flexibility on manufacturers on 12-foot than there is. From what I understand, these guys were the only ones that would even get into contract for making a 15-foot tank. So.
Right. Well, there's a few of them that do 15, but it's more of a specialty. That is correct. There's a lot less of those guys. Yeah. The guy I spoke to in Pennsylvania, he only went to 12.
So is there anything you've been taking notes on what you're going to follow up on?
The brittle stool question, the ruptured disc question, and the third-party visit question. Was there something else?
And the price of a brand new tank.
Oh yeah, asking them what they were supposed to give us last Monday. second option of a new tank, and to let us know what that would be.
I'll see what I can do on that one. I don't, yeah, I'll see what I can do.
I mean, we asked for it before and they didn't give it to us, so I'm not sure if they're going to give it to us this time again or not.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I would certainly communicate that the board has discussed using another vendor for upcoming projects based on their response to this one. I would expect a discount on this tank. I just wouldn't.
And you can make that mention to them as well, Keith, is, you know, commissioners feel like we're getting a repaired tank. We wouldn't buy a new car with a dent in it. We're getting a tank with a dent in it. There should be some financial restitution for that, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can be assured that they're going to be watching this meeting sooner or later, and if not, one of their competitors might. So, I mean, Evoqua made that statement that they have a reputation to lose, right? That was Scott's, their representative statement, that they have a reputation to lose, and clearly they might. You know, I mean, you know, this is no different than some other business relationships we have with companies in the town of Merrimack. If they own up to their demise and deal with it professionally, then we'll be more than happy of giving them a clean slate and vouching for them. And if they're not, then we're not. Simple as that.
And I think, Wolf, you mentioned that, you know, people are going to be asking us, because we're kind of at the forefront of this, how our experience was.
Yeah.
And it's kind of important to them that, you know, I guess the proof's going to be in years that go by, if the tank lasts just as long as its sister tank next to it. And if the repaired tank doesn't, you know, need to be recoated far more frequently than the other tank, you know, that's going to be the answer basically. So that's what I'm worried about, is that, you know, when you might get 5, 6, 8 years out of the coating before you need to repair it. I'm worried if this is going to make the 5-year bond, and then after that might start failing earlier, but we're just guessing at this point. So we don't really know.
Yep. That's right.
Well, keep in mind too, if you remember, most of you might, there was some coating issues on the tank deliveries at 4-5. And we found those when the tank was delivered. And so if there are coating issues that don't look right, even despite maybe whatever, we really, you know, give the okay to say, go ahead, iOS, ship it. Even if there are, we get in the tank, we're looking at it again. We found things at 4-5, they got fixed. And it wasn't that expensive.
Yes, but Keith, the problem is something else. I'm a commissioner, okay? I am here having fiduciary responsibility. I'm just speaking for myself. I don't want to speak for anybody else. But I am asked to sign off on a vessel that got damaged, and they can only be inspected to a certain extent. And I know this is a worst case scenario, but we have to think in best and worst case scenarios. Worst case scenario is that this vessel will have an unexpected breach at those locations where it got damaged. If that happens, nobody can guarantee how much water will be released from that vessel in what period of time. It might be a period of time that we can control, where we can, you know, dispose of the water before it gets critical, or it just goes and splashes right out. And this tank has a volume of, I don't know, probably the first 5 or 6 feet of, or the 3 or 4 feet at least of the whole room. And if that happens, we don't know what kind of damage it does to the building and to the, you know, to the electrical panels in the building, and what kind of damage we cause there. We are asked as commissioners, I am asked as a commission to sign off on that. I'm not comfortable with that, right? Because this might be an issue for a commissioner 10 years down the road, maybe even 15 years down the road. And at that point, it can cause some significant damage. We have not seen an alternative to that, which doesn't allow us to make good informed decisions. Even though Evoqua committed to provide us those alternatives Monday a week ago, right? We're being presented basically one alternative or one option: accept the vessel. And I'll give them that they're apparently trying to accommodate, you know, our request for 5 years of a repair bond, right? So that's great, that's appreciated, that's positive, that's a good thing. But it doesn't change the fact that we don't know what our alternatives are. And that does not make me feel comfortable. It makes me feel that I'm being coerced into a decision that I don't want to make.
Yeah, I have to agree with Wolf. I mean, honestly, the solution in my mind is that they would provide us with a new tank and financial considerations for the delay in time. That's my first choice. I would stop fooling around with repairing the tank. They can sell the reconditioned tank to somebody else.
So maybe instead of going back and forth, I got that Wolf and John want to get a new tank. Instead of like going back and forth with the competitor, maybe we just decide we want a new tank.
And that's what we asked them, and they didn't provide us with that as a second option.
And that does not make me feel good. Why would they not provide that?
Let me just, they did. Evoqua provided an option for a second tank. They did not provide the cost. A lot of the cost is going to come through Wes. I'm not sure if there's a cost at Evoqua's end. I don't know. Wes so far has been unable, I guess, to sort out what that cost is. I will go back and ask again.
Right, but even Evoqua committed to providing us with their end of the cost Monday a week ago, and we have not received it. And like Paul said, that doesn't give us a warm and fuzzy feeling that they're playing with open cards.
Yeah, there should be no cost to us. It should be a cost to them for the delay. You know, we didn't have this accident. We should bear no responsibility financially for it at all. I would not be in favor of voting to supply them with additional funds for a new tank. Or a new tank, that's what we should get.
That's what I was asking, yeah.
So I don't need a number unless it's zero.
Good point. It's a good point.
And that's the right stance. I just am telling you, it's probably not going to be zero because the contractor, and we can fight this. The manufacturer is saying, I am providing the tank that meets code and that meets your standards and specifications. The code was the standard. They're meeting it in their view. So that will be what we're up against. And I'm just trying to point out that side. I'm not trying to influence yet one way or the other. I just think that's what we'll be up against.
And I think you're right, but that also drew our reasoning why we said in the last meeting about 4 weeks ago that we need to get a subject matter expert. And I'm sure there has to be, if there's a oil refinery that blows up because a tank failed, there's gonna be the courts and the different parties will hire subject matter experts that inspect those tanks for the cause of failure. Those folks is what we should worst case have to, that we should be able to hire to help us through that process. They know how this works. Maybe we're wrong, right? Maybe we just need to meet code and they just need to be code. But it doesn't change the fact that this piece was damaged and is not original, right? It's repaired, it's refurbished. But we're going by information that they provide to us based on a code book. None of us is a tank specialist and neither is Wes. So we cannot really make that decision if this is a safe repair or not.
Yeah, and the contractor view is another concern. I don't know, Keith, are you comfortable with the statement that they're making about it meeting code as far as the contract, or do we need to have a contract attorney take a look at it and give us an opinion on it?
My instinct is that they're doing this right. That's my instinct, John, but I don't have that third party, somebody who put eyes on it, other than I have shared the repair plan with somebody who's a peer that says, yeah, it seems reasonable. My part of me says, this tank never came in our possession. It got damaged, it got hit, it got returned to the same manufacturer for which we are buying the first tank. I don't even know if the first tank got tipped over or fell down in the factory. I don't know. I'm just making up a scenario, right? The manufacturer who we purchased the first tank, or the one tank that's here is good, we said was good without these checks and balances. It's the same guys delivering that tank to us now that says it meets it. That's my instinct. But, you know, to Wolf's point, to John's point, to all your points, I don't have that third-party validation that says that it's right. I don't. But that's my, you know, that's, you know, my, you know, we didn't check the first tank for that standard. We just happened to know this one got damaged. We saw the video, they owned up to it, and that's where we're at. I will ask for the scenario of a new tank. I will, because you're right. And I hear you, John, that's a zero cost. You know, we're trying to get a tank that's meets our standards, doesn't have a dent in it. And that's what it should be. I will see if that's even what they are considering. My guess is no, based on the initial conversations I've had, but that's the way I will present it.
Sounds good. Let me know what they say. And I understand it's not like a new car, because you can go down the street and get a new car. And we can't really go down the street and get a new tank. But, you know, that's what would make me feel good, is if they provided us a new tank with no costs. We'll eat the delay costs. And it is what it is. And if we decide as a board that avoiding that risk of having future problems and future costs is worth the delay, then that's the way we should go.
I wish it didn't hit the bridge.
Yep.
And Keith, right there is the crux of it. They had the power to not hit the bridge. They could have picked a contractor that is experienced enough to not hit a bridge. A transportation, a freight company, a trucking company. That's right there is the crux of it. This should not turn into our problem. That's as simple as it is.
Understood.
All right. Should we move on? Any final questions, anything, or? Okay. All right. Keith, were you done with everything at this point, or?
That was all I had on the list.
Yeah. Is there? I was just wondering if there's anything for him on the action items. You want to just hang out a second and one right there. Thanks, Ken. Yep. Is there anything listed under here for Underwood? Like the first one is number 24. Look at a cost of service study. Has that gotten any traction?
Actually, I did want to ask about that. I think we were looking for a work session, Dawn, to sort of go through the water supply. I think we would deal with the cost of service at that session.
Okay. And we haven't coordinated that yet, right? The work session?
There's been some initial dates floated around, but I don't think if we landed on one. I know there's been dates given to staff, but I'm not sure where we picked one yet.
There's
all right.
a doodle out there floating around that didn't get much response, so.
Is the doodle poll out there, Joe? I must have missed it too. So
you're not thinking of the salt study though, are you? There's two of them
out there. The salt didn't get much response.
No, but I don't think I saw the other doodle poll.
No, that might be.
I don't think there's been any.
You said sent me dates.
Yeah, I think you guys were looking at dates, but I'm not sure that's probably the next thing that needs to be done is a doodle poll then on the work session.
I'll take care of that.
All right. So what else do we got here? I think that was all that was listed under Underwood, right? I don't see anything else on the action items list.
There was 19.
Yeah, follow up with Underwood and Jamie to graft water quality. I think
that's ESR 60. You're all set.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can, when we come to this later in the meeting, we can probably delete that off the. Okay. All right, if that's I don't have anything else for Keith Underwood.
That's
So
it.
you guys good? Anybody else have questions?
All set. Thank you, Keith, and good luck.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
look for more info and we'll get it
Appreciate
right.
you advocating for us like usual.
Thank you.
I
That's
am.
right,
I mean,
yeah.
I
Thank
know
you.
maybe I'm trying to find some, some path forward that's just the best. And I understand everything you guys are saying. I get it. I understand. And hopefully the plan we come back with, we're all comfortable with. That's the bottom line. But
Yeah.
I hear
think
you.
they-
I got some things to do. Thank you.
In the end, it has to be a reasonable offer. And I think
Yeah.
it can be reasonable on our end as well, but right now it's just not there.
Yeah.
Okay. I am on vacation next week. So, but like last time, I'll make myself available. I got cell phones and cell service. So I will make one way or the other be there if things are starting to come together.
I appreciate that.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Yep.
Thanks,
Bye.
Keith. Have a good night.
He's co-host, right? He's not gonna.
You want me to wait to make sure I don't cancel the meeting?
Oh, I'm sure.
Should just take it back.
All right. I'm going to hit leave meeting now.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Hey, we're still there. Awesome. All right, so let's see here. We already did number 2. So number 3, update regarding the noise complaint at Turkey Hill Booster. Superintendent Ron Minor.
So in your packet, you should have had the sound
Yeah, sound meter readings.
meter readings that we did as a baseline. We have not done any noise modifications yet. We have reseeded an area that was damaged. The lights have been changed out. The gate has been moved. Some additional signage is put on the gate as well. So this will be coming up soon. We've been kind of shifting this around as needed and have not gotten back there yet to actually do this work, but it is planned. I just want to kind of give you an idea of what we were looking at for noise, and I'm sure it sounded a lot worse. I think this kind of, not that it's ideal, but I don't think it's that bad either. So, but I am curious. We did note, I did notice walking around the building, there is a larger gap in the back of the building, and it seems noisier in the back. So I'm thinking by what we're looking at is sealing up along where the concrete and the base meets, and putting, we're just gonna get the right material to actually caulk it or whatever. I think that will, I'm hopeful that'll cut down quite a bit of the noise as well.
And where has it been left with the a butter? Have they been presented with this information at all, or?
I have not. I do have to follow up with them as well. But I mean, I'm sure they have seen the gate, and that
Right.
the grass has actually come out very nice. We get, I guess, fortunate with all this rain
Right.
in one aspect.
Yeah.
But I will follow up and let her know as soon as I can. That we'll be making the other repairs as well.
Anybody have any questions on that, where things stand, or anything else?
No.
Okay. So the minutes are done, right? So we're on to,
We actually need to do non-public, isn't it now?
oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, so Wolf, you missed the, we had to do the minutes early because scheduling with Keith and Jamie didn't work out, so we had to jump ahead. So we already approved the June 21st regular session meeting minutes. And we needed you to be available for the non-public minutes because presumably John and Paul will be abstaining since they were absent.
Right.
So that would just leave you, myself, and Ken for a quorum to approve these minutes.
Okay.
So with that being said, if we have the non-public meeting minutes for June 21st in front of us. If anybody has any motion to approve those minutes. Because this is non-public minutes, we probably would want to keep any comments outside of the public minute, this public meeting right here. So unless, if everybody's in favor of approving these minutes as written, then somebody can make the motion to do that.
So do.
Motion by Ken,
Seconded.
second by Wolf. We'll do a roll call. Ken, how do you vote?
Aye.
Wolf?
In favor?
Myself in favor. Paul? Abstaining. And John?
Abstaining.
Abstaining. Okay, so that passes 3-0-2 with Paul and John abstaining, no opposition. All right, so I guess now we can move on to number 5. And that's the action items from previous meetings. So the action items, the first one on the action item list, number 2. I don't know if you've made any, that's been kind of hanging around for a while.
Two is the ESRs and there's actually an attachment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I had a question on that possibly. Let me just see. So on the last page of the packet, there was a summary of the sort of outstanding projects between Underwood and Emery and Garrett. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at that. If there's anybody who has any questions, let's see what I have here. So I was wondering, do we? I had a note in my notes here. Do we want to close out ESR 38, 49, and 47? Let me see. It just looks like. I don't know why I had that note. Original.
It says in the notes section that it's closed due to single bank escrow account grant.
Okay. Which one's that? Number
38.
38. Oh, there it is. All right. So 47, it looks like there's still a balance in there. But I was looking at like well 7 and 8 PFAS treatment plant final design phase. Aren't we done with the final design over there?
We are.
I guess I probably could ask Keith that. I'm just wondering with these little numbers left over, $4,100 left over on a $269,000 scope of work. If that's just money left on the table, then if Underwood does not, if they're finished with it, then do we close that out?
We normally do anyways.
That should be able to be closed out because
it's money that's not going to be spent at this point, I don't think.
Even if we had to go back, we can actually, it's reimbursable. It's SRF funding.
Oh, yeah. All right. So I just pointed that out if you want to look into those. So that's the only question I had on that engineering service request task.
You did mention 39 as well. These are 39. That's site plan review for Merrimack Park Place.
Yeah.
I'd like to leave that one open.
I said, okay.
Did you say, I thought I heard 39, but if you did, I may have that wrong.
I said 49, which was well 2 final design phase, which I think we're in construction phase on well 2 as well.
Yes.
And that's a $400,000 scope of work and there's $4,600 left in it. So I guess my question is what happens to those remaining numbers if they're not going to be billed by Underwood, if the work is already done?
I close them out, but I we just went through all of these, so I'm not sure why. There must have been a reason why that they weren't. There might have been
And that's,
something
yeah,
going on.
if there's still something left to be done.
Recheck them.
Okay. And I don't know if there was anything on Jamie's part down below here. No, I didn't have anything on that, so, okay. All right, so we can get back to the action items if that's all set. So number 12, is that something?
I did actually, I have an email from Carrie, and it was her opinion that we cannot use capital reserves for that.
All right, so Amanda, you can remove number 12 or hide that from the list. Maybe put a little note in there, maybe in parentheses that said that says that those funds can't be used for this purpose, just so we know how it was resolved. Everybody agree with that, moving 12 off the list?
Her email actually says, in my opinion, Ron, in my opinion, that the CRF could not be used for the salt mitigation work. The CRF is limited to direct use for equipment and facilities for existing storage, transmission, and production of water.
All right. All right, number 13, I don't know if anybody has anything to report on that one. I think that was an ongoing, and that's the investigate templates for disaster recovery policy, data retention, security policy. I think that's in process, if I'm not mistaken.
It is in process, and I want to say that, I want to say Michelle was saying August meeting, you might have those policies.
I think she did.
The
Yeah.
cybersecurity and the IT policy, the credit card.
And I think number 19, let's see, that's what was the latest scope we just approved with, all right, good. So everybody in agreement that we can remove number 19 from the action item list? Anybody have any questions on that? No? Number 23, this is a quarterly thing as well, PFAS in the distribution system.
So we're actually doing sampling tomorrow for that.
All right, good. I think you presented something to us 1 or 2 meetings ago, maybe. So that's good if it's a quarterly thing. Seems like we're on track. Number 24, Keith's going to discuss that at our workshop once we schedule that. Number 35, I think that is already finished.
That was already done.
That was already sent out.
Yep.
So number 35, we should be able to remove that from the list. Any questions on that? No? Number 36, you had issued a doodle poll for the salt mitigation committee, and that's not having a lot of reception.
They actually got a bunch more today when I sent out a reminder.
Oh, good.
Did you? So is it at the point where you think we have enough people to hold this thing, or?
No, because there's a couple of key people that are not
Oh,
on the same day. So
Okay.
I'm waiting for a call back from one to see if they can switch.
okay. So you make the call. If we don't have enough people, and or the right people, we'll have to reissue it or something at some point and see if we can do a different date. Okay, so we'll keep that one on. Number 37, commissioners think about decision criteria for moving forward with alternative water sources. I think that's what we're having the work session on too as well. So we could probably leave that on the list and make those decisions once we have the work session scheduled. Number 39, add an agenda item to upcoming meetings to discuss the noise complaint at the Turkey Hill Booster Station, which is, we did discuss that, that's on the list. Do we want to keep that on the list until we find there's a final resolution?
Yeah,
or
let's leave it on there, and I can hopefully,
as time goes
in
by?
the next couple of weeks, I can get hopefully address the sealing up.
Yep.
And I'd like to do another metering of this.
After that, yeah, that's a good idea.
Made any improvement, so.
And then I think the last one, number 40, open house at Wells 4 and 5. I know that's probably something we were thinking of doing, I don't know, a little bit later. I don't think we had a time frame on that, but so if there's nothing to report on that, we'll keep number 40 open as well. Wolf, do you have any questions on that, on the Wells 4 and 5 open house? I know that's something you were talking about at the last meeting, but if not, we'll
No.
just,
Yeah, we
Okay.
just need to start planning for it and pick dates and stuff like that. But I think we were thinking about combining it with 7 and 8, right? But that might be off the table now.
yeah, right. Great. Do we have any action items we want to add at this point? I know the whole tank issue is at the forefront, but I think that's going to be an ongoing agenda item until that's resolved. I don't know if it makes sense to put it as an action item, or if you want to put it as an action item.
I don't think we need to, because I think it's such a hot topic. I don't think it's going to get pushed.
Yeah.
No, you know.
I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah, it's not gonna drop off the radar.
These action items are more things that, exactly like you said, we talk about and then we get going in our business routine, busy, and we forget to revisit these things. But I don't think anybody's going to be forgetting to revisit
There's a
the.
big hole in the
Yeah.
7 edition that's missing a vessel.
Yeah.
So,
Anything else that we? Anything else we talked about today that? I mean, I know we're still the pump test on well 9's up in the air, but again, I know that's going to be acted on as soon as we can. So I don't think that's something that's going to drop off the radar screen. But I was just asking if anybody has anything they remember that came up today that they might want to add to this right now. I can't think of it.
I have an item that I would like to have added, because we've been talking about this a couple of times and it didn't gain too much traction, and that is the planning board's approval request for, you know, any new development or additional build out in town towards MVD. I want to better understand that process. What kind of questions are we being asked? What kind of questions do we need to ask ourselves? And what does this mean to the approval process? You know, can we impose certain things? Can we not impose certain things as part of these questions? And, you know, what is our reach here? You know, we get a lot of people that complain about, you know, some of the limitations that we have in town with water bans and so on. And I think we all agree on the odd even ban as a general good idea, no matter what the well situation is. But last year, for example, we had the somewhat dire situation that we might face again one day with the elevated bans. And I want to be able to answer to those people that are asking me that question, what are we doing to maybe curb some of the development if we have the authority to do so, or at least make sure that those developers put the proper infrastructure in place so that existing citizens aren't being affected. I really would like to have some presentation or something about that. You know, maybe that's part of a work session in the future.
I was just going to ask
really
that.
like to understand that. I really would like to understand that better.
I was just going to ask you that, Wolf. Do you think that we should have a work session on this? Because I know there's going to be questions back and forth and probably
I would say so.
Some legal interpretations possibly if needed. And
yeah, it
would
probably
be
makes
nice
sense
to
to make
know, better understand the process.
Right. So it probably makes sense to have a work session about that. I'm not sure if I would call an extra one for that. Maybe we can find a work session in the future where we can tag that on.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's true, because this is something that's not a burning issue, but it could get dropped off the radar screen. So if we want to make it an action item, how do you want to word that? Just the understanding the formal process of a request for water allocation and anything related to the planning board with that too, or just more of like what the process, you know, review process of water allocation request, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, since I've never seen such an approval request, you know, as submitted from the planning board, I can't even word it properly. But
right.
that's probably more or less the language. What is the approval process for a request from the planning board, and what is the you know, decision, you know, the path to that decision for approving or denying that request, and what authorities or obligations does the MVD, respectively the planning board, have? or not just the planning board, also the developer, obviously the builder.
So in short, typically, if there's a project going on within the well, any of the wellhead protection areas, we get notified and we are asked for comment. It's been the practice if it's a Flatley project, the mall project, that kind of stuff, it definitely goes out for a third-party review. Single house lots, you know, smaller subdivisions, you know, if it was like a 7 to a 14 number of homes. Let me back up. We do that in-house, but the contractor or the person proposing the development actually comes directly to us and files, you know, if it's a mainline extension, if it's an entrance application, that's what they bring to us. And for a small subdivision, we'll get a set of plans as well. Typically those are done, like I said, if it's a, you know, 7, you know, like 14 lot subdivision or something, we would probably review that in-house more than likely. The large ones, like I said, typically goes out for review. But the forms that I actually sign those forms on behalf of the commissioners. So that's where the work session would probably come in if we want that process to change.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know how much you want to see.
I think the last time we talked about this, we were considering, do you want to present some of those requests, maybe on the larger ones, allocation requests to the commission so we're aware of it? Some of the questions I had were, and I can't remember, I think Keith said that if they don't propose to include irrigation numbers in their requested allocation, then we don't necessarily approve irrigation use, but I don't know that we ever follow up. And I could see that to be that could be a big hole that we're missing out on, especially, you know, somebody comes in and says, I'm only going to use this much potable water, and they might end up using 4 times that amount when they irrigate. And that's the number we really need to factor into.
Every one of those homes
right
throws in an irrigation system and it just triples what they were.
So I guess the question I have is, do we issue a letter that says we reviewed your request for water allocation, we can supply your requested allocation. For instance, if the allocation doesn't include irrigation, can we say that you are not going to be allowed irrigation? And if you do want irrigation in the future, you got to include those numbers in this allocation. I think that's the piece that we may be missing.
And I want to say, off the top of my head, I want to say that the letters do include that now, as far as the statement being that this allocation is without irrigation demands. You know,
okay,
it's only based on what we've gotten for information. So if it doesn't include, they didn't supply us with irrigation, it is noted on the
right
letter. And it's also, the letter is, so if something doesn't happen within, it's only good for a year. So, you know, if they haven't started anything, they're going to have to come back to us and get another letter as request.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just maybe explaining that process and showing us some of the letters that have been sent out more recently, so we're more familiar with that. And I think it's important that we capture that irrigation in there. And I don't know if we have the authority to ever deny somebody, like if the allocation came in, it didn't include irrigation, the project gets built, and all of a sudden we see sprinklers flying everywhere. Can we say, you have to turn those off unless you come to us with a new allocation? Because I think that's, you multiply those out by multiple sites, and that's where we could be seeing a lot more demand than Underwood is factoring into their calculations,
Right.
So we got to have a way to kind of capture that, but also be able to sort of police it and we wouldn't be driving around or measuring everybody's irrigation. It's only if we get to a critical place where there's a problem, we can at least have something to fall back on and say, hey, you didn't send in an irrigation request in your allocation. So, you know, this whole subdivision, for example, maybe you should consider shutting your irrigation system off if there's going to be a like a next level irrigation restriction. You know, maybe the rest of the town is basically suffering that restriction because of someone who didn't request irrigation but now is irrigating without telling us they were going to plan on irrigating. That's not fair to the rest of the town. We got to kind of account for that, I think. I don't know if I'm capturing what you were asking, Wolf, but that's kind of my spin on the whole thing.
We can put stuff together for the work session. So
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, it's more or less what you said. People are saying, why does MVD approve, new build outs if we already have a challenge with the water? Now, we all know it's not quite as black and white, right? So that statement in itself is just not true. But I want to be at least in a position that I can answer that question and say, well, we can't deny anybody to build on their own property that they bought and paid taxes for, unless they don't meet certain criteria. And I don't want to know what these criteria are, right? That's basically what obviously we can't deny anybody anything just because we feel like it, right? There has to be a legal cause for it. And I want to understand what reach does MVD have, right? And what are these criteria to make that decision whether or not we approve something or deny something, really.
Okay.
Make sense?
It does.
All right. So that's the one action item. And anyone else have any other action items? If not, we can move on. Good idea. Thanks for that suggestion, Wolf. All right. So we're on, where are we at? Number 6, old business. Anybody have old business? I don't think I have anything. All right, seeing none. Any new business?
Kind of what Wolf went over. It's kind of like new business.
It was. If nobody has any new business items, then we can move on to superintendent report.
Actually, do not have anything to report.
Wow. All right.
Oh, that was.
You gotta have something.
That was in Jamie's report. And I
Yeah.
want to say it was 9
Well, now it's 9.72
inches over the last 20 days. We've had of rain.
Yeah, right. So I guess we're safe to say that our tracking our aquifer levels is not a concern.
They've been pretty steady. They're not coming up real quick though.
Yeah.
I have 2 miles on that.
No.
Same.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's actually, I think that is something that needs to be repeated a little bit clearer. So while we're obviously happy about that rain, right, it doesn't mean, 2 or 3 weeks of rain in a row. It doesn't mean that a year and a half or 2 of continuous drought is just being compensated or overcome like that. The aquifers in the ground are still struggling, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I think
That might be a strong word, but
I think the state said southern New Hampshire is better than the north.
Yeah, we're
Right.
not abnormally dry anymore, but so we are definitely doing better. I guess with the rain, people are not obviously irrigating, as much. I still have
some people are not irrigated.
I've still seen some irrigation going off in the rain, but
I know mine's been off since probably right before the 4th of July. I got water bleeding out my lawn when it's dry, so the water table must have risen up, and I mowed the lawn today and the tractor's wheels were all wet and everything. And
must have it coming down just shedding off that hill.
it happens in the spring too. So I think the water table is high, or at least where I am, but I'm not in a sand and gravel well aquifer. So, you're going to get more variation on a different kind of soil anyway. But all right. So yeah, if nothing else, then I guess that's going to bring us to questions from the press and public. I don't know if we see anybody on the Zoom.
I have a question for you.
Okay,
I just wanted to clarify, I think, Jill, you said something in the background that I didn't catch fully, but I wanted to make sure that I have it correctly, that aquifers are not filling up as quickly as you would expect.
The monitoring wells are not.
Okay,
coming up
thank
as
you.
quickly.
Thank you.
and that's good because normally at this point, they're going down. So the fact that they're not coming up is not surprising, but
Slowly, it's a couple inches
Yeah.
here, a couple inches
yeah.
there.
So maintaining at this point is actually a good thing.
Hmm.
So that's a good point to make.
We're in the positive direction. We're not
Good.
dropping anyways. So.
All right. So can anybody else tell if there's anybody in the queue for calls or?
There is not.
Okay. So seeing no questions from the press and public, what we're going to do at this point is we're not going to close this meeting, but I'm going to entertain a motion to go into a non-meeting with legal. So the motion is going to be to recess and have a non-meeting with legal counsel. So at this point, I guess we can have someone make that motion if so inclined.
So moved.
Motion by Ken to go into non-meeting with legal. Second by
Second.
anybody? Second by Wolf. All right, we'll do the roll call. Ken, how do you vote?
Aye.
Wolf?
In favor?
John?
Aye.
Paul?
I vote aye.
Myself as well, says 5-0-0, no opposition, no abstentions.